Good morning, Molineros. Hello. We are going to introduce a new book, new unit. We are going to start with the 1.2 that it refers to history. So maybe some of you like more history than geography, or others on the contrary. But that's the fact that we are going to start the 1.2 with an introduction to history. This introduction does not appear in your books, so pay attention to me to this first introduction to history. We're going to start about history with this PowerPoint that is uploaded to the blog and also in a photo. So we're going to reduce my size. It's not necessary for me to be bigger. So here, this is the PowerPoint with the introduction. What is history? So, as you can imagine, there is a subject that refers to the study of the past. So you can think what is a subject. You can think in examples, in a brainstorm. What is history? Think in ancient Greece. Think in ancient Egypt. But no, you can think also in the life of your parents or the life of your grandparents. It is history too. History is all the past. But the key is to know how the historians study the past. We are going to start with the first diapositive that appears here. What is history? Introduction to history. Sorry, my mobile phone. Okay, so history is the science that studies how people live in other time. How people live in the past. So how people live in Middle Ages, for example, or how people live in ancient Mesopotamia, for example. Yeah. So Roman Empire or people live in the past. So, but the question is, how can we study the past? How can we know how people live in the past? That it is here. Historians are the people in charge of studying the past, and historians use and interpret the remains of our ancestors in different ways. For example, oral sources that they can talk with people who live in the past. You can talk with your grandparents to know how was their childhood, for example, or you can talk with your parents to know how they live in the past in 20 years ago. This is history too. It is history too. That, for example, I have here example of what when talking to you. That it is exactly here in Tareas Cuarentena, okay, introduction to history, that we can show, for example, this person is asking this old man, how was the life in the past, for example, yeah, or there are more examples of in the PowerPoint that written sources, we can read texts from the past. For example, we can read hieroglyphics from the Egyptians to know how did they live in the past, or we can read texts from the Romans, like that one, in which we can see a tomb. In that case, it's a tomb. So to know who did live in this moment, how he died, for example. Okay, next. So we have oral sources when we ask people speak with another people that live in the moment of the past. Written sources when we read texts from the past, but also iconographic sources. So I mean, image. All the image that we can get from the past. It's important to know how do they live. Image like that one is a pharaoh of the Egyptians. Or iconographic show like this one. This is a picture taken from the Romans that, well, we can find information about how they live in the past. Or this another sculpture in which we can see pictures living or people of the past. So we can find information in the past from these sources. Or this another one, I don't know. This is an archer riding a horse that is a Babylonian statue. So we can find information from the past from these sources. Also, the next one, the last, is material sources. The historians can study objects from the past. These objects can be, for example, a tomb, like that one, in which we can find objects to know how did they eat, for example, or what did they eat. Or we can find these mosaics from the past in which we can find information about this: a dolphin, a fish, or two fishes, etc. So, and also this is another example of a written text. You can try to find out what is the example. This is a written text, for example, that sepan cuántos esta carta vieren como yo, doña. Try to read. It's my challenge for you to read to try to read this text. So these are the sources that historians get information from these sources of the past. Coming back to the PowerPoint, and as an example, you have here in the PowerPoint a link that is going to lead to guide us to this video. That is the information of an archaeological site. This is an archaeological site. Archaeological sites are places in which historians study the past. Like that one. Maybe you have visited a Roman archaeological site, or I don't know, Iberian archaeological site, that these girls are digging to find objects, to find sources from the past. These are the sources that historians use to study the past. Well, you can be your own historian. How? Well, you can draw your own family tree. So, what's the way to do it? You can ask to your family to complete your family tree, writing down your name, the name of your brother, your sister. Maybe you did in primary education. Maybe you did something like this one. This is a family tree. Your own history, the history of your family. As an example, I have here mine. So I have here, I have here mine that appear here to increase the size, in which you can see me, Mr. Raúl Mínguez, me. I was born in 1980, for example. My wife that was born here, my brother, my mother, my father, etc. This is my family tree, with the dates in which they were born, sadly, when they died. Okay, this is the first introduction to history. I will continue tomorrow with the next days with the next diapositive, but I think that for today is enough. So remember, the first activity is to write to complete your family tree. So that's all. So we have finished. So bye all, goodbye. I'll see you the next